What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Nick, the UFC is ending on a bang for the 2021 calendar year. We got two heavyweights going in there to slug it out. We've got Houston's own Derrick Lewis taking on up-and-comer and knockout artist himself in Chris Daukaus. This should be a great final main event for the calendar year.
Absolutely. The UFC's going out with some fireworks, and every time Derrick Lewis steps in there, aside from that one dud, mostly because of Francis Ngannou, his fights are electric, insane, and always end in crazy sort of knockout fashion. But a lot of that can still be said for Chris Daukaus as well, who's come in pretty hot into the UFC, and it seems to me like the UFC doesn't really want to wait with this guy. They're going to throw him straight to the wolves, straight into the deepest part of the pool, and Derrick Lewis versus Chris Daukaus is going to be a crazy fight.
Yeah, I'm very excited for it. And, you know, Derrick is kind of unfortunately in that position that Dustin Poirier is in now, where he has had two shots at an undisputed world title and unfortunately has come up short in both of those outings. So having to take on an up-and-comer like Chris Daukaus can be kind of difficult for somebody like a Derrick Lewis to really get excited and get up for, because he's used to fighting current champions, former champions, fighting for interim belts, fighting for undisputed belts. And this is just a fight night main event. It's going to be happening at the Apex. But I think Derrick has prepared himself well for this fight. And I do think Chris Daukaus is a very dangerous threat. 4 fights in the UFC, 4 knockouts. Some big names, Alexei Oleinik probably being the biggest. He's not been in there with as big a names as Lewis, but of late, he seems to be a very hot fighter in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, and very similar to Derrick. He likes to get the job done with his hands. He likes to throw, get into boxing range and throw, and that can be either a good thing for you or a very dangerous thing for you when you're fighting Derrick Lewis. But a lot of people have realized that trying to stand and bang with the Black Beast is a bad idea. And you usually have to mix up the martial arts pretty frequently to beat Derrick Lewis. You can't just go in there like, look at Ciryl Gane. He had to use every tool that he had on the feet to get the job done, and it was still a tough night for him for those first couple of rounds. Chris Daukaus, I think, is going to have to utilize that athleticism, that speed, and try to get Derrick a little bit tired on the outside before he goes in there and tries to start slugging with the big guy. Derrick is a very patient, very skilled fighter, and he knows exactly when to throw the shots and where and how to land them. Because when you watch him in there and he's fighting these guys who are literally the best people on the world, on the planet, Ngannou, Ciryl Gane, you've seen him fight every single one of the top guys that the heavyweight division has seen. And he's patient. He's willing to wait for his shots, even if that means going 10 seconds before the final bell against Volkov. So he's dangerous throughout the entire night, and Daukaus is going to have to watch out for that. The lights are going to be bright. Derrick Lewis is very familiar with all of that, and I think Daukaus is going to have his hands full.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough fight for Daukaus, especially what you said about him liking to get the job done with his hands. And he does have very crisp boxing. But what allowed Gane to defeat Derrick and get that stoppage of Derrick, which is a pretty uncommon thing to get, is his patience and his ability to not just strike with his hands, but utilize all of his limbs to strike. He was very good with the kicks. Ciryl Gane is also extremely good with getting in and out of range without getting hit. He's very fast and he's very athletic. He pops in when he's ready to throw his combinations, and he'll start with a 1-2 to your face, and then he'll start to move his way out, finish with a kick. It's very disruptive. Fighting Ciryl Gane is very disruptive if you're his opponent trying to get your own offense off, and that's going to be interesting as that fight starts to build up with Francis coming in the first of next year. But I think that's what Gane did that really confused Derrick. Was he was very fast, a little bit faster than Derrick, and 2, he moved in and out of range with the quickness so that Derrick wasn't able to land his offense. I think if Chris Daukaus wants to be successful against Derrick Lewis, he needs to do the same thing. He cannot let this fight happen in boxing range from the beginning of the fight. He's going to have to wear the big guy down a little bit. He's going to have to come in there and throw his shots and move out, throw some leg kicks and move out, push kicks, check, if Derrick does decide to throw some kicks, check them and come back with a jab, and just be very patient and start to accumulate some points, accumulate some rounds, and maybe get Derrick to a point where he's got to try to rush in. And that's where you can kind of find some success and some openings on Derrick. But coming across the cage and trying to stand and box with Derrick, no matter who you are, is a bad idea. And I think Chris Daukaus, if he wants to be successful, is going to have to utilize a bit of patience here.
Yeah, and it might not appear like it, but fighting is very similar to dancing in a lot of ways. You know, the octagon's kind of similar to a dance floor in that it usually takes two to tango. For the best kind of dancing, it takes two or more sometimes, and it takes a lot of rhythm and one person leading the dance. And Ciryl Gane was really good at disrupting the rhythm and making Derrick have a difficult time finding his rhythm. Boxing is very different from that. It is heavily involved with rhythm and movement and motions. And when you have two guys that like to throw primarily just their hands, you'll see them both start to really groove into their rhythm and find what works for them. And that's where you see some crazy exchanges, but it can leave you compromised and available to getting hit with big shots. And you'll also allow your opponent to kind of find that rhythm that they're looking for all this time. So disruptive striking is very, very important in MMA. Nobody does it better than Ciryl Gane right now. But Derrick Lewis is one of the best single punch strikers that the UFC and really any combat sport has ever seen. He's patient with it. He knows exactly where to throw the shots. I mean, that knockout of Curtis Blades was so crazy. You know, there's really it kind of looked like the uppercut we were talking about a couple of weeks ago that Gervonta Davis likes to throw. He knew that Curtis was going to try to change levels and come inside, and so he had to kind of loop it around almost backwards, and it was beautiful, perfectly timed, obviously perfectly placed. And even though it didn't look like one of those shots like that, you know, clobbers you, and that it didn't look like Kamaru Usman versus Masvidal, but
right.
It had a worse effect. You know, it put him straight to sleep, his toes curled up and everything like that. So that sort of stuff is scary power. There's very few fighters that have that type of touch, and Derrick Lewis certainly does. If Chris Daukaus doesn't watch out for that from the start of the fight to the very end, he will find himself waking up inside the octagon, getting help while Derrick gets his hand raised. You know, Houston got a little bit bummed out, and I was one of the fans as well, many fans here, that was bummed out when he didn't get that title in Houston. That was kind of tailor-made just for him, but I feel like sometimes home court advantage is not an advantage in fighting. I think a lot of fighters would venture to say they'd rather get on a plane with their team, go struggle in a hotel, go struggle at the PI or whatever for the week, cut weight, do it, you know, ugly, no family around, no nonsense like that, and then go get the job done and come back home. Derrick, I think he's one of those guys. They made him do the opposite. He was the king of Houston. Everybody came to town. They were looking to see him. He's on the top of the bill, you know, last man to walk out and all of that stuff. And I think that kind of got to him. This fight coming around, he's currently the underdog, which in my opinion is crazy, but he's also going to Vegas, a place he's very familiar with fighting and working out of. And I just feel like all the pieces are in place for Derrick to get another vicious KO and then get right back to his winning ways.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not going to pick against the Houston fighter. I'm a Derrick Lewis fan. I know him personally, so I would never pick against him. But I will say that I do believe Chris Daukaus can have some success in this fight if he's patient and he starts to pick Derrick apart with some leg kicks and let this thing unfold, because this is a main event. This is a 5-round fight, and we know that Derrick, although he has power all the way up until the last second of the last round, his speed and his volume does start to slow down as the fight goes on. But I'm not picking it to go past the second round. I think Chris Daukaus is very good, and I think he actually could be somebody who's a rising star in the heavyweight division at one point. You don't come into the UFC and start your first four fights with 4 knockout victories and not be a legit fighter. So he's definitely legit, but Derrick finds shots on people that were a little bit more skilled than Daukaus, so I do believe he's going to be able to find it on Daukaus. I don't think Chris is quite to that striking level that Ciryl Gane is yet and can avoid the power of the big man. So I am picking Derrick Lewis to win second round TKO.
Nice. I'm going to go a little later. I'll say third round, but I think it's going to be a TKO as well. I think he's going to knock him really senseless, and then he's going to get on the ground, and it won't quite be a walk-off. You know, the ref might have to step in and get in the way. But, man, it's always a fun night of fights whenever the big boys round out the main card, and you got just the heavyweight sluggers going in there to put on a show. This is going to be a fireworks type of fight. I can't wait for it. The rest of the card's really good as well, but this one definitely sits on the top for a reason.
Oh, for sure. Well, guys, thanks so much for watching this video. If you've been watching us for a while, you know Nick and I aren't picking against the hometown boy, Derrick Lewis, to get this job done. But let us know, do you guys think Chris Daukaus is going to win the fight? He is the favorite, so we always love chatting and debating with you guys in the comments. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do so now. It helps out tremendously. And until the next video, have a wonderful day.
Peace.